And today we have Wendy Weiss, the Queen of Cold Calling, on with us. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Wendy. Wendy Weiss is an author, speaker, sales trainer, and sales coach. She is recognized as one of the leading authorities on lead generation, cold calling, and new business development. Her clients include Avon Products, ADP, Sprint, and thousands of entrepreneurs throughout the country. Wendy has been featured in the New York Times, Business Week, Entrepreneur Magazine, Selling Power, Inc., Forbes, and various other business and sales publications. She is the author of Cold Calling for Women, Opening Doors and Closing Sales, and the Sales Winner's Handbook, Essential Scripts and Strategies to Skyrocket Sales Performance. So Wendy's going to go into her presentation, and I wanted to just encourage all of our listeners today to type in any questions that you have into our chat box as they come up. What we're going to do is towards the end of the call, we'll do a little Q&A session, and we'll get to all of your questions. We will also have the link for the recording emailed out so that everybody can have a listen afterwards as well. And it's going to be a great hour. So welcome, Wendy, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Maria. And hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you today. I do want to thank Maria and Shay and everyone at DirectPay for inviting me to be here with you today. And our topic is getting prospects to return your phone calls. You know, I've been in business a long time, and years ago, it was really easy to get people on the phone, and these days, of course, as we all know, most phone lines are answered by voicemail. It's hard to get hold of people, and it's hard to get people to return your phone calls. So that is our topic for today. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you see there is a chat box. Type into the chat box if you ever wonder whether or not you should be leaving a voicemail message. Type yes into the chat box. And, oh, I'm seeing the yeses come in. Okay, really fast. A lot of yeses. Okay, type yes into the chat box if you wonder why nobody ever calls you back. Okay, and I'm seeing more yeses coming in. And type yes into the chat box if you think you have better luck with email. Although I will tell you it's not about luck. It's actually about skill and strategy. So I'm seeing even more yeses coming into that chat box. So, okay, so the big question I know everyone has is how can you sell if you could never ever speak with a prospect because they won't return your phone calls? So that is our topic for today. For those of you that do not know me, I will share with you that I was never, ever supposed to be the queen of cold calling. I was actually supposed to be a ballerina. That's a picture of me when I was about 5 before my first recital. And I moved to New York City as a teenager. I was 17. I still live and work in New York City. I moved here as a teenager to dance. And then, like every artist in New York City, I needed a day job, and so I waited on tables for a while. That got kind of tired quickly. And then I got a job with a telemarketing company that did appointment setting, business-to-business appointment setting, and it turned out I was good at it. Who knew? Because ballet dancers don't talk. We dance, we don't talk. And so I did that day job for a while, and then eventually I started my own business where I had clients that I'd represent, and I did all the new business development for them. And actually it was one of those first clients that dubbed me the queen of cold calling because I found so many new opportunities for him. And from there, I segued into the business that I have today. The business that I have today is working with entrepreneurs and business owners and sales professionals, people that need to develop new business. And I do think I feel like I'm doing something that's really important because even though the economy is getting better, it is still hard out there. So I have trained thousands of business owners and entrepreneurs and sales professionals to use the phone to develop new business. I've been using the phone to develop new business my entire career. That's how I built my business. I've trained top producers. I've helped people become top producers. And I'm really happy to be here with you today to share some of the ideas and the techniques that I've used to build my business and that my clients are using to build their businesses and their sales. So thank you for taking time. I know you're all busy. I know you could all be doing something else, and yet you've taken the time to be here today. So I'm going to be giving you the best information and the best help that I can give you in the amount of time that we have together today. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, we're going to talk about eliminating frustration. It is very frustrating to leave messages for people that never call you back. So we're going to talk about how to eliminate the frustration. We're going to talk about how really just one word, changing one word, can make the difference between someone responding to you and someone not responding to you, because what you say matters. And I'm going to give you some tweaks that you can put to use immediately to get prospects to start calling you back. And for those of you that feel like you do need some additional help, at the end of this session today, I'll be telling you how you can get your copy of my book, The Sales Winner's Handbook. So if you like what you hear today and you feel like you could use some help to get to the next level, I'll tell you about the Sales Winner's Handbook later on, and I'll be inviting those of you who are ready to order your copy right away. So my goal for today is to give you some tips and some tools that are going to help you increase your results right away, because I want you to leave the session today with at least one new tool or one new idea that you can try out right away. In terms of what we'll be discussing, if you are brand new to sales, if you've never done any sales, then probably everything I say is going to be a revelation. If, however, you've been around for a while, and I say something and you find yourself thinking, oh, yeah, I know that, I'm going to ask you to keep a beginner's mind, because being successful, whether it's in prospecting or in sales in general, it's not about what you know. It's about what you do. And sometimes it's the real simple little things that are going to make the most difference for you. The best example that I know of this is in sports. If there's a team that has a losing season, at the end of the season, the owners fire the coach. They go out, they hire a new coach. What's the first thing the new coach does? The new coach goes back to the team and says, back to basics. And you know what? It works exactly the same way here. So if you get one idea or one tip from this session that gets one prospect to return your phone call, or one prospect to respond to an email, or you get an appointment or a sale that you wouldn't have otherwise had, then our time together today will have been well spent. Now, I will also be taking questions at the end, as Maria said. That's actually always my favorite part. So if you have questions as we're going along, type them into the chat box, where you typed all the yeses, type into the chat box, and it will be my great pleasure to answer your questions at the end of this session. So grab a pen and paper or your tablet or whatever it is you're using to take notes, and let's go. The first thing, the question I get asked, the two questions I am asked all the time is, Wendy, should I leave a message if I can't get hold of my prospect directly, or should I send an email? So those are the questions, and sometimes people will say to me, well, I usually have better luck with email. It's really not about luck. It's actually about skill and strategy. Now, ideally, in the best of all possible worlds, it's best to reach your prospect directly. So I want to give you 3 strategies that you can use to bypass voicemail. So here goes. Number 1, you might want to write these down. The first one is to simply ask the gatekeeper, that frontline person that answers the phone. If that gatekeeper says that your prospect is in a meeting, when is the best time? When will he be done with that meeting? If the gatekeeper says the prospect's out of the office, when is she returning to the office? Or even the question, when, excuse me, when is the best time to reach the prospect. So you kind of got to be a detective and ask some questions, and then simply call back at another time when that gatekeeper is giving you some information that it might be a good time to reach that prospect. You can also, number 2, call your prospects outside of business hours. Now, most gatekeepers, and the usual workday is either 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 4:30. But if you're calling business owners or you're calling high-level corporate executives, they come in early, they stay late. So if you call that prospect before business hours start or after business hours end, they may very well be in their office. The secretary, the assistants, everybody else has gone home, but they very well may be in their office, and they may actually be picking up the telephone because nobody else is around. Choice B actually can be during lunchtime, because human being gatekeepers can go out for lunch, but if that high-level decision maker doesn't have a lunch meeting, they could very well be at their desk answering the phone. So during lunchtime can actually be a good time to reach prospects directly. Number 3, call the wrong number. And this is what I mean. Let's say that your prospect's phone number ends in 1234. So call 1235, call 1236, call different numbers within the company until you reach a human being. Now, this will not be the right human being. That doesn't matter. When you get a human being, you say to that human being, oh, I was trying to reach whatever your prospect's name is. Would you please transfer me? And they will transfer you. And the reason that you might want to do this is if you've got somebody, a prospect, that looks at the caller ID and doesn't pick up when they see a number that they don't recognize, when you call someone else within the company and ask to have your call transferred, it looks like an internal call, and that prospect may very well pick up an internal call where they will not pick up a call from a phone number that they do not recognize. So those are 3 strategies that you can use right off the bat to try and bypass voicemail and get to your prospect directly. Now, the Salesman's Handbook, which I'll tell you about later, has a lot more strategies like this that you can use and adapt. Okay, so we've asked the question whether or not to leave a message and whether or not to send an email. And the first question about those questions that you do need to then ask yourself is, what is the purpose? If you're going to leave a voicemail message, what is the purpose of leaving that message? Same question about email. If you're going to take the trouble to send that email, then what is the purpose of doing so? And lots of times when I'm working with clients, I'll ask my client this question, well, you know, what's your goal? You're leaving the voicemail, what's your goal? And they'll tell me, oh, well, I want to get their attention, which you do, or I want them to go to my website, which you don't really, or I want them to become aware of our company. Yeah, you want them to become aware of your company, but those are not really your goals or your purpose. What we're really going for here, your goal, should you choose to leave a voicemail or to send someone an email, your goal, write this down, everyone, your goal is that they call you back or that they respond to your email. That's what we want them to do. So, and by the way, a prospecting email is different from a marketing email. If you're a solopreneur or if you're in a big company, maybe there's a marketing department that sends out emails. Those kind of emails are different. But on a prospecting email, your goal is not that the prospect buys from you or dumps their vendor and hires you or goes to your website or downloads your white paper or any of that kind of stuff. Your goal, very simply, is that your prospect either calls you back or hits reply to your email. So what has to happen for that to be effective? You leave that voicemail, you send the email. What has to happen for that to be effective? Well, the first thing that has to happen is your message has to get there. Now, For voicemail, that's pretty straightforward. If you leave somebody a voicemail, unless their system has shut down for some reason, if you leave somebody a voicemail, they're probably going to get it. If, however, you send someone an email, that does not necessarily mean that they're going to get your email. Just because you hit send doesn't mean that it arrives. People have spam filters. There are all sorts of things that block that email from arriving in your prospect's inbox. So I do want to give you two things that you actually want to avoid like the plague. First of all, attachments. You may have a beautiful, fancy, wonderful brochure, and you want to attach that to your email and send it off to your prospect. Do not do that, because attachments, first of all, get caught in spam filters, so your wonderful email with the beautiful brochure is not even going to arrive. Second of all, people that are savvy, and most people are these days about email, they get an email from somebody they don't know that has an attachment. Attachments can have spam, and so they delete your email. So do not send that beautiful brochure as an attachment. Later on, after you've talked to the prospect and they want to look at it, that's a different matter. But in a prospecting email, no. And your company, you probably have some really fancy signature block that has a nice graphic of your logo and all that stuff. Don't use it. You're better off sending text messages, because HTML and graphics get caught in spam filters. And if your email is caught in a spam filter, it does not arrive. So the first thing that has to happen is your prospect has to get your message. After that, you have to get their attention. So they get it, but it has to get their attention. If and when it gets their attention, well, after that, they have to either listen to your voicemail, and people make decisions very, very quickly about whether they're going to listen to your voicemail, or they have to read your email, or both. The next thing that has to happen, let's say they did actually listen to your voicemail or read your email, they need to know, if they want to contact you, they need to know how to contact you. So if you are one of those people that mumbles your phone number at the end of your voicemail message, please call me and my phone number is blah, blah, blah. Your prospect is not calling you back. Your prospect needs to know how to contact you. So I'm going to talk about the best way to leave your phone number later on, but you want to be very clear how that prospect can get back to you. I was doing this webinar one time, and somebody put in the chat box that they never leave their phone number in a voicemail because they always planned on sending an email, and the email would have their contact information. And I thought that was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, that if you leave a message for somebody and you don't give them the mechanism to call you back, and then you send off an email that potentially gets caught in a spam filter and doesn't arrive, and then you might have a prospect that wants to call you back and not be able to. So you make sure that that prospect in your voicemail, you make sure that they can contact you because you clearly leave your phone number, and in your email you also have all the contact information. Okay, so if everything works, they get your message, it gets their attention, they actually read it or listen to your voicemail, they know how to contact you, then and only then there's a possibility that that prospect is going to respond to you. So let's talk now about what gets in the way. What gets in the way of that response? And by the way, I'm getting over the tail end of a cold here, so if I sound a little raspy, that's what's going on, and I know that you will all bear with me on that. Okay, so this is what gets in the way. I'm going to give you 3 problems that people have when it comes to voicemail and email and getting people to return your phone calls, and I'm going to give you the solutions to these 3 problems. So here's problem number 1, no system. And you might want to write that quote down from Peter Drucker. This is what a lot of people do. Sometimes they leave a message, sometimes they don't leave a message. Sometimes they send an email, sometimes they don't send an email. Essentially, they're winging it all the way. And what Peter Drucker is saying here, what's measured improves, is if you do the same thing consistently over time and you track it, then you actually know what works. So if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you track it and you take a look at it, and then you can say, okay, now I'm going to change this piece, and if you change that piece and continue to track, you know if the change you made gets you a better result or a worse result or the same result. But if you're simply winging it, you do not actually know what works. And unfortunately, that's what most people do, is they're winging it all the way to delete. So what is the solution to this? The solution that we use with all of our clients is doing a voicemail campaign. And if you've got email addresses, you do a voicemail campaign in conjunction with email. And a voicemail campaign is a series of messages that you leave over time. So you actually want to think of this as a drip campaign for voicemail. And this is how it works. We usually do a 4-call sequence, and we do it with email if we have email addresses. So week 1, you call your prospect. If you don't get the prospect directly, you leave voicemail number 1, and you send along email number 1. You wait 3 to 5 business days. If you haven't heard back from the prospect, you call them again. If you get voicemail, you leave voicemail number 2, and you send email number 2. You wait 3 to 5 business days. If you haven't heard back from that prospect, you call them again. If you get voicemail, you leave voicemail number 3, and you send along email number 3. You wait 3 to 5 business days. If you haven't heard back from the prospect, you call them again. If you get voicemail, you leave voicemail number 4, and you send along email number 4. Now, I'm going to talk about this last voicemail later on, but that's the basic structure of voicemail. You are reaching, of a voicemail campaign, rather. You are reaching out to that prospect 8 times, 4 voicemails, 4 emails, over a period of about a month. And a high percentage of prospects will return the phone call. The chances of somebody calling you back if you leave them 1 voicemail, that's pretty minimal. But doing it this way, it increases response. It does a few things, actually. First of all, it builds rapport because that prospect is hearing from you multiple times. It increases credibility because your prospect is hearing from you multiple times. And it increases response. We know this. This is marketing 101. Repetition increases response. And I had a client in California. They had no system, no process. Sometimes they'd leave messages, sometimes they wouldn't, sometimes they'd send emails, sometimes they wouldn't. And so what I did in working with this client is we put together a voicemail campaign with email. We put it in place, and everyone started using it. And they were astonished that everyone, and now they've gotten used to it, but everyone that is using that system that we put together is getting prospects to return their phone calls. The Sales Winner's Handbook, which I'll tell you about later, does have sample voicemail campaigns that you can take a look at and adapt for your own use. Okay, so problem number 2. Problem number 2 is that what you say, you might have this process that you're doing the voicemail campaign, but then what you say in the voicemail campaign doesn't make an impact. So write this down. First of all, nobody cares what you do. Just write that down and underline it. So, and also, nobody cares what you sell. So if you get on the phone and you say, well, I sell insurance, or I sell real estate, or I sell IT solutions, or you get on the phone and you list all the various products that you have. We have homeowners insurance, we have auto insurance, we have health insurance. You go through the list. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And what you are doing, actually, when you get on the phone and talk about what you do or talk about what you sell, is you're actually making yourself into a commodity. Indistinguishable from anybody else that's selling something similar. Because what happens when you get on the phone and talk about what you do, people hear that as a thing. They say, well, I have that thing. I don't need another thing like that because I've got it. You want to think about all of your prospects. Imagine they're all listening to radio station WIIFM. That's radio station, what's in it for me? And it's really your job to tell them, to help them understand how you might be able to help them. The rule is people don't want to know what you do. They want to know how they're going to be better off after you finish doing whatever it is that you do. That's the rule. And so you always want to, in all of your voicemails and also in your introductions when you do get someone on the phone, you want to lead with how you help your customers or how you help your clients. The template that I use is we have a track record of, and you fill in how you help your customers or the results that you get for customers, and not a list of what you do. So the other thing about your message is you don't want to leave too much information because remember your goal. You want the prospect to call you back. You don't want them to make a buying decision from your voicemail or from your email. And you can't tell them everything in one voicemail message or one email message anyway. And you don't want to. Your goal is to get them to call you back or respond to your email so that you can start to have a conversation. You want to engage. And so right now we're talking about voicemail and email. Most people have exactly the same problem with their introductions. So everything that I'm saying also applies to your introductions when you get that prospect on the telephone. So I want to give you as the solution to no impact, I want to give you the voicemail formula. So here's how the voicemail formula goes. First thing that you want to do when you leave a voicemail is say your name and your phone number twice, and you want to say it slowly. And I recommend that you say it at the beginning of your message and say it again at the end. Make it really easy for that prospect to return your phone call. If you say it at the beginning and then you say it at the end, they don't have to play the message back if they didn't get it right at the beginning. You say your phone number at a pace that you would. My phone number is 123 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1. The pace you would if you were dictating it to somebody that you wanted to write your number down. And you do that in your voicemail at the beginning, and you do it again at the end. After you have said your phone number at the beginning of your message, then you lead with, and you can use the template that I gave you, we have a track record of, you lead with how you help your customers. We have a track record of helping our customers. Fill in the blank with how you help them. The next thing that you can do is to give an example. Examples are very, very powerful. So let's say, for example, you're a financial advisor, and you work with people that are thinking, getting ready to retire. And so you can say, well, we have a track record of making sure that our clients don't have to downsize when they retire. And I know you financial advisors have confidentiality issues. I'm not saying to name names or numbers, but you could then say, for example, we just worked with a couple, and they were really worried about what was going to happen to their lifestyle before when they did retire, and we were able to show them a plan by which they could retire when they wanted to retire and not have a drop in the standard of living. And then every voicemail, if your introduction is about taking the stress out of saving for retirement, then every voicemail could give a different example. And so whatever, excuse me, whatever industry you're in or whatever type of client or customer that you work with, You lead with how you help the customer, and then you give an example of a customer that's been helped. That is incredibly powerful. People love stories. Everyone, human beings are storytellers. We love to hear stories. We love to tell stories. So your prospects will get it when you give an example. Here's another one. Let's say you're in commercial real estate, and let's say you help tenants save money on their real estate spend. So you could, after you leave your phone number, we have a track record of helping our clients contain their real estate spend. For example, we just helped whatever the company was save a specific dollar amount on their rent over the next however many years. And then every voicemail and every email could give a different example. So once you have done that, once you leave your phone number slowly so your prospect can write it down, you have a sentence that talks about how you help your customers, you give an example, you do need to ask that prospect to return your phone call, please call me, and then you say again, this is your name from whatever the company, and my phone number is. And that is the voicemail formula. It's short, it's sweet, and if you follow this formula, you should be able to put together some voicemails that will get prospects to return your phone calls. Okay. I do want to talk for a moment about email subject lines, because of course you don't have a subject line in a voicemail. The subject line is very, very important in your email, because if the prospect sees a subject line that is not interesting, they're not going to open your email, even if it did arrive in their inbox. So asking a question in your subject line, either something about what you're saying in the email, or even just the subject line, should we talk? That is a subject line that I have used very successfully. Should we talk? Question mark. Using the prospect's name in the subject line. The prospect's name is an attention getter. Everybody loves their own name. So using that prospect's name in the subject line can help to get the prospect's attention. So you might say, Jack, comma, should we talk? Question mark. The subject line does need to be less than 50 characters because that's all that's going to show up. It actually should be less than 40 because people sometimes, if they're reading it on their phone, they'll see even less than they would see if they were reading it on their computer. And one more thing about email. When you write an email, it needs to sound like you wrote it. You do not want it to sound like the marketing department wrote it. So keep it conversational, stay away from jargon, be short to the point, but it needs to sound like it's written by a human being, not by a marketing department. And you know, I have a client that followed this process, this voicemail campaign process in the voicemail formula, and she used to leave messages, nobody ever called her back. Now she's having conversations with 25% of the prospects she calls because they're calling her back. And by the way, a 25% conversion is very, very high. Okay, so we have had two challenges, two problems that get in the way of having your prospects return your phone calls. The first was not having a system. The second was that your message just simply doesn't make an impact. So here we're going on to challenge number 3, which is no call to action. It's kind of surprising. But what most people do, they kind of ramble on and they don't really say what they want the prospect to do. And you do actually need to tell the prospect what it is you'd like that prospect to do. So there are two types of calls to action. And you might want to write these down. The first is a direct call to action. And that's pretty easy. That's please call me, my phone number is. And in an email, please call me at whatever your phone number is, or respond to this email and let me know a good time to contact you, and I will do so. pretty clear. You're saying what you want the prospect to do. But there's another kind of call to action, and I call this the indirect call to action, otherwise known as the move on message. Now, earlier I spoke about doing a voicemail campaign and that you're doing a 4-call campaign, and you leave 4 voicemails, you send 4 emails. The first 3 voicemails and first 3 emails all focus on how you help your customers. The last message, if you're doing you could do more calls, you could do fewer calls, doesn't matter, but the last one is always what I call the move on message. And the move on message goes like this. You say your name, company name, phone number. I've tried to reach you a number of times to discuss, and you fill in the blank with whatever it is you wanted to talk about. I haven't heard back from you. I know you're really busy. So I'm assuming this is not a good time for us to have this conversation. I don't want to make a pest of myself, so I won't be contacting you again for a while. I'll check back in, and you can name a time frame. It could be 3 months. It could be 6 months. It could be a year. It really depends how many leads you have. And then you say, if you've been meaning to get back to me and haven't had the chance, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss, fill in the blank with whatever it is you wanted to talk about. And then you send essentially the same message in an email. This is always the last message in the voicemail campaign, and it is the most returned. And this is why. There are a certain percentage of prospects that are in the market today for whatever it is you're selling. They're in the market for it. And they've been meaning to call you back, but they haven't gotten around to it. When you say, I'm not going to call you again because I don't want to make a pest of myself, you move to the top of their list because they do want to talk to you. They will respond. There are also people that you've been calling. Maybe they're not in the market today, but they know at some point in the future they will be. And if you have left good messages previously, they will also call you back. Because here's the thing. Here's the other thing. What most salespeople do is they'll call somebody once or twice, maybe 3 times, and then they just stop. But they never tell the prospect they're not going to call again. They just stop calling. Your prospect thinks you're going to keep calling them. And that's why they don't call you, because they think you're going to keep calling them. And so by leaving this move on message, you're telling them that you won't. And so a significant number of prospects, if you have left good messages, you can't just say any old thing in the first few messages. You do have to really put some thought into what you're going to say. But if you've left some good messages and then you leave the move on message, you will get people to return the phone call. And then if you do not hear from that prospect, the last message in the sequence, you recycle. You take that lead. If you don't hear back from them, that you still think this is a good lead for you, then you recycle it. You bump it ahead 3 months, 6 months, a year, again, depending how many leads you have, and you try them again. I'm going to repeat the move on message because I know somebody's going to ask me that question. The move on message, the script for it is also in the Sales Winner's Handbook, but this is how it goes. You say hello, your name, your phone number. I've tried to reach you a number of times to discuss, fill in the blank with whatever it is that you want to talk about. I haven't heard back from you, and I know you're really busy, so I'm assuming this isn't a good time for us to have this conversation, and I don't want to make a pest of myself, so I won't be contacting you about this again for a while. I'll check back in, and you name a time frame. If you've been meaning to get back to me and haven't had the chance, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss, and you fill in the blank with whatever it is that you want to talk about. Okay, so we've actually talked about the 3 elements of getting prospects to return your phone calls. The basis of this is a voicemail campaign and doing it in conjunction with email if you've got email addresses. A voicemail campaign is like a drip campaign for voicemail. We know it's marketing 101. Repetition increases response. And so if you want prospects to return your phone calls, you need to have a system to help them do that. And your voicemail campaign is that system. I also gave you the voicemail formula, which is that you leave that your name and your phone number at the beginning and the end of the message, and the middle part of the message is focuses on how you help your customers, and you give an example. And that is the voicemail formula for getting somebody to return your phone calls. You then use a strategy to compel prospects to take action. And that is in the first voicemails and emails. It's simply a direct call to action of asking them to return the phone call. But the last message, the move on message, is actually an indirect call to action, because when you say, hey, I'm not going to call you anymore, a good percentage of those prospects will return the call. So, and I will share with you that every client that I have worked with that has put this into place, this voicemail campaign with the voicemail formula and the move-on message, every single one of them is getting prospects to return their phone calls. So I'm going to open up for questions now, which is in just a moment, actually, which is actually my favorite part. So if you have any questions about anything that I've been talking about, or, I mean, this is a big topic, maybe, you know, things that I didn't have a chance to cover today, just type those questions into the chat box, and it will be my pleasure to answer your questions. Before I do that, however, I do want to take a moment to share with you about the Sales Winners Handbook for those of you that would like to take this to the next level. The question that I get asked all the time is, Wendy, either I'm really uncomfortable on the phone, how do I get comfortable? Or, Wendy, what do I say? And I'm a really big believer that if you know what you're going to say, you're not going to be that uncomfortable. So that's why I wrote the Sales Winners Handbook. And the book is 155 pages. It's got scripts to set appointments, respond to objections, close sales, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole chapter on questioning, gathering information, gathering agreement, justifying pricing, et cetera, really scripts for just about every situation that's going to come up. And it comes with $227 worth of additional business building digital downloads. So that's instant gratification. You get those as soon as you order, and we ship the book to you. Now, if you order within the next 24 hours, you will have free priority shipping in the U.S. If you're outside of the U.S., you would simply pay the difference. The link is bit.ly/SWH-offer. That's all in caps. And Maria, if you'd be good enough to type that into the chat box and for everyone. And this free postage, this free shipping offer is good for the next 24 hours. The book comes with my personal 100% lifetime, and that is my lifetime guarantee. So what that means is if you order the Sales Winners Handbook and then you get the book and for some reason you decide it's not for you, you let us know and we'll refund your money, period. I will tell you that that almost never happens. We have less than a 1% return rate on anything, but should that happen, that is the policy. So there is no risk to ordering the Sales Winners Handbook. And these are the bonuses, the digital downloads that come with the book. You'll get the video, Finding Your Ideal Prospects, those who are most likely to buy. It's a video, a $99 value, yours free. You'll get a transcript of the interview I did with Jeffrey James, where we discuss voicemail campaigns and how to create them and get people to call you back. That's a $27 value, yours free. You'll get the voicemail report, Naming and Reaching the Decision Maker, a $27 value, yours free. You'll get the Ideal Leads Quick Start Guide, that shares with you its resources to find good leads for free, essentially, and that is a $27 value, yours free. And you get the Ideal Prospect Profile Workbook, which is a $47 value, yours free. So those are all of the extras that come with the book. They are digital downloads, instant gratification, and then we ship the book to you. And if you order within the next 24 hours, by midnight tomorrow night, we will do free priority shipping in the U.S., and if you're outside the U.S., you would simply pay the difference. So Maria, do we have questions?
So first I want to make sure that, that everybody can see the link there. Wendy, are you seeing it on your end?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
yes,
good.
I am.
Okay, perfect. So that was number one. And yes, we do have, there was one question here. So sometimes a prospect will say, you know, they'll just kind of try to rush you off the phone and say, you know, I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. Thank you for your time. What would you do in that case?
Okay, great question, whoever asked that. Here's the thing. And we didn't talk about any of this today, but there's actually only two reasons that a prospect will say, I'm not interested. The first reason is that you're not talking to the right person. That is a possibility. If you're not talking to the right person, then they might say, I'm not interested because they don't have it, because they're not interested, essentially. They don't have a need. So it's very, very important to be very targeted about who you're calling. You're not calling anybody. You are calling those leads that you think are most likely to be good, lucrative, profitable customers for you. So target, 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 target. Also Marketing 101. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part of the answer, let's assume you are talking to the right person. If you're talking to the right person and they say, I'm not interested, that means you're not saying anything interesting. And I am not being facetious here. It's just like what I was talking about earlier about voicemail. What you say matters. And so if you get on the telephone and talk to the prospect all about what you do rather than results, outcomes, value, how you help, they may very well say, I'm not interested, because you've turned yourself into a commodity. The Sales Winner's Handbook does have sample scripts, sample introductory scripts in a lot of different industries, so you can take a look at those and kind of use them as a model to create your own.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any other questions at this point.
Okay, I guess I was really, really thorough.
You were very thorough, Wendy. Absolutely. Thank you so much for the wonderful content and all the great tips. And this was helpful to me as well, so thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, everyone, you can always go to my website and order the Sales Winner's Handbook. But if you want free shipping on the book, then by midnight tomorrow night.
One question just popped up, Wendy, if we have a minute. So
sure.
This question comes to us from Craig Harris, and he wants to know, what are some suggestions on getting past a doctor's receptionist? You know how difficult that can be.
Ah, my goodness. That's a really hard one.
Yeah.
I would rather call really high-level executives in corporate America. So you've asked a hard question, Craig, but here goes. I'm not sure that you're going to be able to get past them exactly, but what you're going to have to do is be a detective. Ask when the doctor returns phone calls, because lots of times they'll return phone calls at off hours. They'll return phone calls after the office closes, or they'll come in early and return phone calls. And so if you can find out when they return phone calls, they may very well be in the office all by themselves, and if you call them, they might very well pick up the phone. So that's the first thing I would do. I would also find out, and it depends on how large the office is that you're calling. I actually have worked with a lot of clients that were calling physicians' offices, so I'm very familiar with this. If it's a large enough office, with young enough doctors, they may have voicemail. Sometimes the older practitioners don't even have voicemail. It's kind of amazing. But if you can get a voicemail, if they have a voicemail that is not the gatekeeper, you can do a voicemail campaign. Ask for their email address. If you can get an email address, then you can do a voicemail campaign in conjunction with email, and your goal then is not so much to get past the gatekeeper, because you may not be able to do that during office hours, but you can get some information that'll tell you when you might be able to reach that prospect directly, and if you can leave a voicemail, you can do a voicemail campaign, and if you've got some good messages, you can get them to return your phone call. The third choice, let me give Craig one more option. You might have to coach the gatekeeper. That's the third thing that you can do, is you might have to, if all else fails, you might have to coach the gatekeeper into conveying your information to the doctor and getting that doctor to return the phone call. That would be choice C, but I would do that last if all else fails.
Okay. Those were excellent answers, considering you would rather not call a doctor's office.
Well, it's hard, you know. People, the greatest respect for the people that are calling doctor's offices, because it is hard. Not impossible. It can be done, but it is hard.
Well, this is why they call you the Queen of Cold Calling. Wendy, thank you so much, and to all of our guests today. We will be sending out the recording within the next 24 to 48 hours, so you can all go back and listen again at your leisure. And if you do have any additional questions that you can think of for Wendy, you can submit them on her website, and I am sure she will be more than happy to get back to you.
I would be more than happy to get back to you, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. And
well,
Wendy,
thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much.